The airplane is a feat of modern engineering, a symbol of humanity's ongoing innovation, a gateway to anywhere in the world. And a condemnation to screaming babies, a constant whirring drone and a megalopolis of bacteria. Whichever you choose to believe more in, these top 10 terrifying facts show just how skin-crawling the fruit of our modernization can be. 10. There is no safest seat. Every plane crash is unique, and the safest seat is impossible to calculate until the wreck actually occurs. The most advantageous position will be dependent on the type of accident. It varies if the jet succumbs to a nosedive, rolls or land on water. However, estimations have been made on the most secure place to be. In 2012, a group of researchers used an uncrewed Boeing 747 replete with crash dummies and crashed it in an attempted emergency landing into the Mexican desert. The front of the plane was found to fare the most poorly. The cockpit was mangled, some seats were flung hundreds of feet, and because of the sheer destruction, live passengers would have likely been seriously injured or killed. 9. The toilet is not the dirtiest place. That the location people go to relieve themselves is not the dirtiest place on a plane is surely an alarming statistic. A 2015 study by Travel Math found that although flush handles had 265 bacteria colony-forming units per square inch, there were 2 other gut-wrenching locations with even more pathogens. Seat back trays were the most happily bacteria-colonized places on the aircrafts, with 2,155 CFU per square inch. That's an eye-opening 8 times higher than flush handles. This is likely because of cleaning limitations. Between flight staff have the opportunity to remove rubbish, but not to perform a more thorough sterilization. 8. That plastic-wrapped blanket might not be new. Most people regard cellophane-wrapped blankets as being clean, but lab testing of sealed blankets has shown yeast, mold and other bacteria. Laundry employees for one airline have also stated that only 20% of blankets, ones with distinct stains, are washed. What's worse, some airlines are charging their passengers for blankets. 7. Pilots sometimes fall asleep at the controls. Even more drastically, 1/3 of these admitted to waking up and finding their co-pilot also comatose. Although pilots are permitted to little sleep while flying, at least one pilot must be awake at all times. The results were so extensive that the ECA described it as the most common, dangerous and underreported phenomenon in Europe. 6. You may be flying with only one engine. Transoceanic flights have typically been flown by 3 or 4 engine wide-body airliners. Aviation reasoning dictates that there is strength in numbers, but these multi-engine jets are becoming extinct and are replaced by more fuel-efficient 2-engine aircraft. Modern engineering prevents engine failure from being a regular occurrence, but even if one were to fail, today's jets can take off, fly and land with just one engine. Even if dual failure occurred, a plane can glide perfectly without. As long as air is passing over its wings, the bird will remain in flight, and so a plane with no propulsion will change its altitude for this to continue. 5. Turbulence is getting worse. Umpteen airbound travelers are aware of the unfortunate scenario: a sudden public announcement, a maddening dash to fasten seat belts and the topple of drinks to the floor. Air turbulence is already a nuisance, and it won't be succumbing anytime soon. Scientists now believe that extreme turbulence is due to increase by several 100% in the crowded airspace over North America, Europe and the North Pacific by the mid-century, when the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is predicted to be double its pre-industrial concentration. The current estimated economic cost of turbulence is $200 million each 365 days for United States Airlines alone, and this is expected to skyrocket alongside the growing extent of mid-air turmoil. The irony of the predicament is difficult to ignore. According to a paper published in the Environmental Science and Technology journal, planes are 50 times worse than cars per passenger mile in terms of a 5-year warming impact, and so planes are creating their own problem just by their very existence. 4. The water is not so crystal clean. If the aforementioned exposé on aircraft bacteria was not vehement enough, consider this: the substances that you ingest on a plane, namely water, may not be taintless. A 2019 airline water study investigated the quality of tap water in both major and regional U.S. carriers, and the researchers were in for a startling conclusion. They found varying levels of E. coli and coliform, both of which are present in feces, in the aircraft's Adams ale. This water is supplied through faucets in the galley and lavatories, the water used to wash one's hands and make hot beverages, including coffee and tea. Suddenly it's easy to understand why many flight attendants intentionally don't share in the joy of consuming these delightful refreshments. 3. Your food may have been cooked 3 days before you consume it on board. Teas not exactly cloak and dagger that dishes served on aircraft are bland, unappetizing and generally the yuckiest thing known to man. What is not customary is finding 1,500 food violations over a period of 4 years, as was experienced by the FDA between 2008 to 2012. The organization investigated a number of separate food preparation facilities, all of which supply airlines, finding the following on numerous occasions: dirty utensils, mice, roaches, ants, feces, moldy products and unrefrigerated food. Food is being assaulted on more than one front. However, scientists have now shown that due to sensation transference, plastic cutlery causes food to taste worse. Another attack on food in the sky takes place in the form of moisture. French chef Raymond Oliver is credited with inventing "wetter is better" in relation to airplane food, because saucy meals inevitably dry out to a lesser extent, and taste better. Finally, supposed freshly prepared food may have been cooked between 12 and 72 hours before you consume it. 2. You may only have 90 seconds to escape a burning plane. Although pathogens are indeed disgusting, they are incomparably less likely to kill you than an aflame plane. Not to spread utter panic, but the Federal Aviation Administration obligates that a plane can be evacuated in 1 minute and 30 seconds. The reason: this is the time it takes for fire to engulf and spread through an aircraft cabin. To maximize your chances, sitting within 5 rows of an exit is the most strategical option. 1. Your oxygen mask will only last between 12 and 20 minutes. Those precious oxygen masks only buy you between 12 and 20 minutes of breathing. Fortunately, this is usually a significant enough duration for your pilot to guide the plane to an altitude at which the supplementary oxygen isn't necessary. The alleged oxygen does not actually start out as this, but is instead stored as a cocktail of chemicals and converted to breathable gas.